All right, good morning, everybody. It is that time again. We are excited to be here. And we've got Suzanne Lucas and myself, Brenda Neckbottle, here for the live Real HR show. And I am just working on getting everything to where we need it to be. There we go. Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you guys here. We're here yet for another round of awesome discussion. And I am going to pop our information up. My name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am, some of my clients refer to me as the HR force of nature. And then next to me, to my other side, is Suzanne Lucas, who is known as the evil HR lady. So we have our monikers.
Yes, Brenda's the nice one, although forces of nature can sometimes be very bad, like hurricanes.
Yeah, well, I just get stuff done. That's all there is to it.
That's right.
That's all there is to it. So I am
That's what it is.
popping us up here. So we've got, sorry, I got like a lot of moving parts here. So we've got all of our, I got our chat up. So if you guys have questions, if you have comments, we'd love to see it in the feed if you are joining us live. And then that way we can have a really awesome conversation.
That would be awesome.
Yes. So you guys can find us. You can find me over, I'm going to start flashing up our social sites. You can find us in these various areas and definitely link up and connect with us. We're happy to do so at any point in time. All right. And I know we got it down. I got it down to a science now. This awesome new technology. I mean, it's just, you can have your own broadcast studio right in your
living room, kitchen, whatever you are.
This is a converted closet. So the house was built in like 1906. And I think this was a child's room at one point, but it was turned into a walk-in closet. And so it is now my office.
Oh, well, there you go.
It works. All right. So today we're talking about how to keep them focused when it feels like the world is falling apart. And that's not an easy task.
Oh my gosh, it is so not easy.
No, it really isn't. So this is one of those shows that really will hit everybody. I mean, it'll hit leaders, it's pertinent to HR people, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't have the air conditioning on, so I do have a window open, and I've got people downstairs, so they may be joining us as surprise sound effects, like your kids across the street who are in school.
Yeah, I've got an elementary school directly across from me, and they can get kind of loud sometimes. But you know what? I actually like it because it's happy loud. You know,
yeah,
they're always happy.
Yeah. So, and my birds, the outside birds you'll hear them. It's summer.
Brenda's got birds.
Yes, I do.
So anyway, I don't have birds because I have cats. So the cats chase the birds away, so we don't have any birds.
So we're talking about the things that we need to do to help keep employees focused when it feels like the world is falling apart. And you know what? What's important to do so is that, work is actually a really great distraction for times like this when it's crazy and people are trying to make sense out of things. Work is a really, really great distraction, but there's some things that you really don't want to have circulating, or especially with this level of I don't want to call it sensitivity. That's not it. But this level of conversation that we're having, which I think is good, but at the same time, some people, it's more sensitive in different ways to others. It's just complicated.
Well, I think that's it right now, is that it is complicated.
Yeah.
And right now, everybody is on edge.
Yes.
For many, 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 many reasons. We have the whole world on edge, although I would like to announce that Switzerland was just announced as the safest country in the world as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
I thought that was New Zealand because they didn't have any
They didn't have,
cases.
but when they looked at it, they also included economic success,
Oh,
and Switzerland and Germany are 1 and 2 because we have really competent governments that made good choices. But that's a different
which
show.
is actually a really great segue into the first topic.
All right.
Did you plan that?
I didn't. I mean, yes. No, I did not. No, I'm just bragging because it's nice to feel like, okay, this is one thing off my plate. You know, everybody has so much on their plates right now, and this one is now off mine at the moment. But go ahead.
It's okay. I thought you were going to go into it.
No.
I'll bottom line it. So really one of the first things that we want to be cautious about making sure that people understand what is, I don't want to say what's acceptable conversation, but because I think good conversation is acceptable depending upon the people who are involved and their ability to keep their emotions in check if they hear something that they don't necessarily agree with.
Right.
Right. And that one is political agendas.
Yeah, and the problem is right now is that you can think that you're utterly fair and rational, and somebody else will completely disagree with you and get upset and have a meltdown over it. And that can make the workplace walking on eggshells all of the time for everybody. And it's on all sides, and there's so many sides to what's going on in the world right now that, you know, it's more not left and right or black and white. It's like hexagonal. It's like a dodecahedron. That's the word I remember.
Keep it simple, Suzanne. Keep it simple.
There's just so many things at all sides, and there's so many different opinions, and there's so many different things going on and different stressors in people's lives that when we start talking about these things that have become controversial, it can really cause a breakdown in the workplace. And this is not to say that these discussions aren't important. They are, but there's a time and a place for them. And, you know, we can all agree that we don't want, Starbucks tried this several years ago, to have their baristas try to spark a conversation about race, and it did not go over well. Remember that? Your eyes just got wide.
No, I never heard that.
Oh my gosh, they were having their baristas write on the cups like, let's talk about race. And it did not go well.
Oh my gosh.
Because what do people want when they go to Starbucks?
Coffee.
That's all they want.
That's all
they want.
And maybe those cake pop things, but that's kind of about it.
I've never had one of those.
I haven't either, but I don't want us to go on a tangent, so we'll keep it tuned in.
We'll keep it there. But you don't want that.
No.
And when you're at work, you also do want to get your work done. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be, you may want to be, this may be something for you that you feel like it has to be discussed right now. But once it starts going, what's the result from that?
Right.
Are there going to be hurt feelings? Yes, guaranteed. Guaranteed. There isn't a position you can take that won't result in some sort of hurt feeling in the workplace. And that makes it difficult for people to work together.
Yeah, and you know, you're right. I mean, when I used to be out on the road and, you know, my job required me to travel a lot, I would pop into Starbucks periodically or Panera, one of the two. And and what would drive me crazy is that you would have, I don't have issues with people sitting around having conversations, but when those conversations overlap into my space and I'm working on something sensitive or time that has a time warp on it or something like that, it was frustrating. Or if I was on the phone with a client and all of a sudden you hear people, slamming whichever administration was in place at the time, it was like, oh, really? And it just causes mess. It just gets messy. And that's part of the problem, is that, just in life in general, and then this carries over into the workplace. So I'm speaking from an HR person, looking as to why we get into this situation. And that is because people, they radiate how they feel. And what happens is that comes into the workplace, and then it starts to create havoc, because the emotions start to bring the energy level up into the room, and people don't know when to stop, nor do people understand each other's boundaries, or recognize that they've crossed one and don't know when to switch it off. It's kind of like a beagle when you put food down on the floor and they just can't stop eating, right? But I mean, it's innate, and it's not intentional, and it's not deliberate. It's just being human.
Right. And I think a lot of people have also a difficulty understanding the concept that I can understand you and still not agree with you. Right. So there's this idea that, well, if you don't agree with me, it's just because I haven't talked about it enough. I haven't said it enough. And then that results with someone feeling badgered. And that's not good for a workplace conversation.
Correct.
And I don't want this to be somebody to take what we're saying out of context and say that you should just let, whatever bad behavior happens at the office is fine, because we don't want to tell anybody that their behavior is wrong. We're not talking about behavior. Absolutely, you have rules, you have code of conduct, and that's what you follow within the workplace, and you certainly bring people into line with that. We don't tolerate ever racist or sexist behavior in the workplace. We don't tolerate that. But people can have differing opinions on what's going on out in the world and how to fix that. And that's where the conflicts come in.
Yeah. And then there's also too, is that, so conversely, so what you were talking about is that we also have people, so we have people that are fine with being able to listen to something and be okay with not responding or reacting to it, because they recognize that that's just that person's opinion. But and conversely, we also have individuals that are not shy of exercising their opinion, to the point where it's my opinion and I don't care what you think or feel. And when you've got two of those individuals that are talking together, all of a sudden it's a I don't want to say posturing, but it's a place where one is trying to out argue the other, with the pretense that everybody's got an opinion and it should be heard. Not everybody wants to hear your opinion, but conversely, not everybody also wants to speak an opinion as well.
Absolutely. Not everybody wants to get into discussions over politics, over current events. And it's okay. It really is. And sometimes you don't want to discuss it because those feelings are so raw and so close to the surface. I mean, there are things that if you want me to talk about them, I'm probably going to start crying. I don't want to talk about that in a work setting. So please don't try to badger me into it. And you don't know what those hot button issues are for people. And somebody may be just trying to hold it together as you're following them around saying, don't you think we should do policy X? Don't you think policy X is the best? This is the best policy. Of course we need to do this. And it doesn't even matter what that is. I mean, it can be anything, actually, anything in the world. You have someone following you around saying, why won't you eat this birthday cake that I brought? And you don't know that this person is on a diet or has an eating disorder or has religious reasons for not wanting to eat what you've made, or they've seen your kitchen and don't want anything near you. There's all of these reasons that someone may not want your birthday cake. And it should be okay for someone to just say, no, thank you. Or in more controversial areas, I don't want to discuss that right now.
Yeah. You can
And that
take
should be the end of
birthday
it.
cake. You can take birthday cake and replace it with politics, religion,
Exactly.
discrimination.
I thought the birthday cake was safe.
Yeah, it is. That's a safe analogy. That's really, really great. But you can replace birthday cake with anything that's controversial. But what you're getting at, and we talked about this yesterday in preparation for today, and you use this really great phrase, which is one of the things I love about you is you're just a wordsmith. And what it is that you talked about is that the world keeps pushing in on you. And so if work is supposed to be this place where you can go and, provide for your family, and not that it's there as a luxury resort to get away from the world, but, you're thinking about different topics. You're thinking about moving the needle forward. You're thinking about getting a job done. You're focused in, right? And so when you get at work and then work all of a sudden the world starts pushing in on you at work, well, now you have no escape. And that's part of the reason why people react. And it's not a response, which is a well thought out, return. It's a reaction, which means that it's a little bit more aggressive, or it's not well thought out of, and it's a knee jerk response. And now all of a sudden somebody's calling one of the two of us to say, hey, listen, I got an issue going on down here. And or I'm really offended by such and such who said this, and that wasn't really their intention to begin with. It's just their emotions got the better of them.
Right. And as I said, in a lot of these things, there's a lot of emotions running really, really high on so many issues.
Yes.
Um, you know, for me, and taking it back to the thing I said at the beginning, actually does apply with Switzerland being declared, super safe as far as COVID is concerned. And so I'm like, woohoo, none of us are wearing masks. We're all still kind of social distancing, but, we're all good. And then I have a friend who has an autoimmune disorder. If she catches this disease, she's dead. I mean, that's just it. And so me being excited over, yay, we're so lucky here. And to her, she's a super nice person, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, you're celebrating not wearing a mask. Not wearing a mask can kill me. And I don't mean to attack her in any way,
Right.
It's just that she has a different experience than I have. And we can really set each other off. Now, that is not to say that you're not allowed to say things that you're happy about or whatever. We're not trying to quash conversation, but we're trying to say, let's keep the political arguing out of the workplace.
Yes.
And accept that the person sitting next to you may feel differently about the solutions to the world's problems. A lot of us can agree on what the world problems are, but there's not a heck of a lot of agreement on what the solutions are.
Yes. And this goes towards leaders and business owners too. So when leaders and business owners introduce politics in the workplace, you're not going to have, like, if you're a Republican owner, and you're not going to have a workforce full of Republicans. And conversely, the same thing for a Democrat. You're not going to have a workforce full of Democrats, or if you're an independent or whatever, right? It's just not going to happen. And you have just as much of a blend. And when employers, as a whole in general, and I'm not talking about mega corporations, I'm talking about smaller businesses, because I've seen this in small business, is where they start pushing their ideology onto the workforce. That creates problems. First off, the dynamic between employee and owner, or leader or subordinate, or whatever you want to call it, it erodes trust, which is bad. And then it inflicts and invokes animosity. So that's bad.
Yes, and it can also put your actual business at risk. And this just happened yesterday. The CEO of CrossFit, did you hear about this? The CEO
No.
of okay. I spend too much time on Twitter. That's what this means.
No, but you do have an example that you want to use. This may trump that one.
So the CEO of CrossFit, somebody, the Institute for Health Metrics, posted on Twitter a tweet that said racism is a public health issue. And the CEO of CrossFit replied, it's Floyd 19. And he wrote Floyd in all caps, just like you would with COVID. And I'm sure he was trying to make a joke, and it was an insensitive joke. And all of a sudden, this whole business is collapsing in on itself. And people are dropping their affiliation with him. Big name companies are dropping their affiliation with him for a badly timed, slightly insensitive joke.
Yeah.
And I am 100% sure that he thought he was supporting the Black Lives Matter movement with his tweet. But for whatever reason, it fell on angry ears. And now he's going to have employees that lose their jobs. And that's kind of scary for your business. Is that a risk that you want to take to make this kind of a statement?
And that decision will carry with the employees long after they're gone. Because somebody will say, oh, yeah, that was the infamous Floyd 19 quote. And now, like an actor who has a really great character, you are now typecast for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. It's a problem. And a lot of people and a lot of businesses feel compelled to speak up on the issue of the day. Um, but if you do it wrong, it can damage you. And
Yeah.
what is right and what is wrong and how to do it, that's a good guess, isn't it?
When in doubt, put it through your shut up filter.
Can I get a shut up filter? I kind of need one.
I was introduced to the shut up filter, oh my gosh, in like 2002, 2003, something like that. I had a coworker in Wisconsin who watched his wife slip and fall in the driveway. And I mean, it was just like an ice skating rink. And
Sure.
she could not get up the driveway. So instead of being a gentleman like he normally is, he's a really good guy, he just couldn't help but laugh. Well, it irritated her, it pissed her off. And so now he was laughing. He couldn't stop but laugh. She's getting even angrier. And I said, how'd the rest of your day work out? He goes, yeah, I should have put that one through my shut up filter. And I just died laughing when I heard that. So yes, put it through the shut up filter.
I think that's an excellent, excellent thing. I love that, the shut up filter. I think that's a really good analogy, and you want to double check and triple check, and a lot of that shut up filter comes through your public relations department, and those should be the experts on how to word things. But even so, sometimes you should just shut up.
Yeah, or self-control. I mean, it's just kind of like we're in this world where we have to really start to think and consider of what we, and it's been this way for a while, but is what we're saying going to hurt somebody? Now, I know people in this world who are very, I wouldn't say controversial, but they're confrontational. And they're confrontational because they're coming from a point of their values and what they believe is right. Now that's different, right? That's different than what we're talking about. I think it's okay to be confrontational. I think it's okay to call bad behavior out onto the table. And in many ways I am too, just not like them. But I'm not afraid about saying, look, that's not right. But at the same time, if you're going to say something and there is nothing to call out, is about what you're ready to, well, that didn't come out right. Is what you are about ready to say going to create big problems?
Right.
Is it really going to be taken in the same way? You may have meant it as a joke, but communication is a two-way street. You have to, as a leader, as an HR pro, as a example in the whatever community in, you really have to think, how is what I'm about ready to say going to be taken?
And the problem with social media is it can really feel like you're just talking to friends, but you're not. And the thing is that even if you're in a private group, on Facebook or you have your tweets private, all it takes is one screenshot and it's public.
Yeah.
And
it's lightning fast.
it's lightning fast.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think what we're saying is a joke. And I can say a joke at dinner with my friends, and I know how they'll take it, and I know how they'll interpret it because I'm sitting there. I've got my body language. They know me. I write the exact same words on a tweet. It goes out into the ether. Someone that knows nothing about me sees it, doesn't take it as a joke,
Yeah.
and then what?
Yeah.
And that can make it really, really difficult. And I say this as someone who positively adores social media. I adore it. And I joke a lot on Twitter, and every once in a while I think about it because I'm joking with other HR people. And I think if someone takes this out of context, could could it be a problem? Could it be a problem for me?
Yeah. I mean, you as an influencer? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I joke about recruiting. I mean, that's just I'm this fun at parties too, man. I got my recruiting jokes. I can talk about data. What else? But
Wait, tangent.
you know, I'm really bad at tangents. But it's an issue that business owners need to think about too, because it's not just you on the line when you're a business owner. It's your business. It's your
So
business on the line.
can you share with everybody the example that you talked about yesterday?
Which one? the soccer player?
No. Well, that's
No.
one of them, but that's in the next subject.
Oh, sorry. I can't remember.
It's the mask.
Brenda, I'm sorry, I'm dumb.
It's okay. So I'm going to steal it from you then. So anyway,
Okay, good. And this is totally Brenda's idea. I don't remember.
oh, whatever. It was not. It was not. So Suzanne shared with me a story that occurred about how a girl. This is what we're talking about. How leaders are inflicting.
Oh, the mask. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. I knew you'd pick up on it.
Sorry. Okay, I'll tell you. So there's this restaurant in Ohio, and the owner said everyone has to wear a mask. That's Ohio law right now, is that the waiters and waitresses have to wear masks. But he said you have to wear this Trump 2020 mask. And she did not wish to wear the Trump 2020 mask. And at first she turned it inside out so that it was just blank. And some of her coworkers did too. And then she got in trouble. And when she refused, she got fired. And I tell you what, I've been talking about this with a bunch of my HR lawyer friends, and John Hyman, who writes the Ohio Employment Law blog. John, great guy. He wrote about how Ohio has some specific laws that probably will make this illegal in Ohio because Ohio businesses aren't allowed to attempt to influence employees' votes. But even if not, even if it's 100% legal, going through the battle and the viral posts and is this worth it? Is that worth it? Is the business owner like, yes, I'm so glad I did the Trump 2020 face mask? I doubt it.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
That's a really great example of the world keeps pushing in on you.
Yeah.
It's like now I've got a boss who wants me to wear something that I don't believe in. And the only way I feel that I can get out of it is to quit.
Yes.
And that's not right.
No. And, supporting the aims of the business is one thing. If you're hired to work on the Trump campaign, then yes, your mask should probably say Trump 2020. And if you want to complain about that, find someone else. You shouldn't have taken that job. But if you get a job as a waitress, you should expect that your politics don't matter, and they shouldn't matter. and they shouldn't be brought into it. And I would say the same thing if it was a restaurant requiring a Biden 2020 mask. It's nothing to do with one political view or the other. It's that your job is to bring food to people's tables and to offer good customer service. And this decision by the business owner, as John says, it's probably illegal under Ohio law. It wouldn't be illegal under every law, every state law. Even if it's 100% legal, it's a bad idea. It's really a bad idea.
Forget legal. I mean, let's just look at the repercussions of it, because, you know, you're bringing, which is our second session, we kind of alluded to it in the first half of the show, but it's really, you know, having those discussions, sensitive discussions on the current climate. You know, I mean, look, our political landscape has been highly polarized for a long time, highly polarized. And, you know, those are just things that, honestly, if you don't want to have issues in the workplace, and if you really want your employees to stay engaged, keep focused on the business and the task at hand, you have to work to make sure that they understand to keep those things out of the workplace. Don't have those kinds of conversations. But conversely, if you've got, which I seem to like the word conversely a lot today, but if you know, you want people to contribute information that will help with your, you know, diversity inclusion efforts, or you think something that's a contribution, or they think it's a contribution to the organization, make sure that there's a pipeline available for them to go ahead and roll that information up. But also make sure that you communicate with them to let them know that it's been received, it's being reviewed, or you give them a determination. It's like, you know, I really like this idea. I think it's great. I'm not really quite sure how it fits in right now, but I'm going to keep this and hang on to it to see if it's something that we can possibly look at again in the future. I'm not promising anything, but you know what? That makes people feel really good. It makes them feel heard in a time period where they feel like they need to be heard. And number two, it gives you a toolbox of really awesome things to pull out of and just say, hey, remember that idea that, you know, Johnny had about 7 months ago? Yeah, well, I think we need to take a look at that. I think it might be the right time to roll something like that out. You know, I mean, let it work for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's really important when we talk about diversity and inclusion. I put those together in one word of diversion, which is a completely different word. Diversity and inclusion. That means also taking ideas that come from different people. Everybody comes with a different background. And so if someone comes to you and says, hey, this is something that could help us as a company be united more, this is something that could help us target this other market, this is something blah, blah, blah. Like you said, listen. And it may not be the time, as you said, but listen and let them know that you listen. When people don't necessarily need a yes to their suggestion as much as they need a thank you so much for the idea and we're looking into it. Or as you said, well, we can't do that right now, but. And that can really make a difference in terms of helping people feel heard in the workplace. Yes. I think there's just so many people that have these different experiences that that other people just don't understand.
Yep. And, you know, the other thing, too, is the media sensationalizes everything. And it doesn't matter what media outlet it is fast, and it sensationalizes the things that keep us distracted from really focusing on what matters. And so, you know, if you have an IT infrastructure where you can lock out specific types of websites, so that way all that stuff isn't, you know, jumping in on your server, you know, take out the media too. I'm sorry. The people want to know what's going on in the news, they can look at their phone, right? But at the same time, it takes away one less possible distractor from keeping people focused on what you need, and that's them getting the job done, because you still have payroll to make. You still have customers that need to be fulfilled. You still have vendors that are, you know, bringing you stuff. I mean, it's the less you Like the world isn't going to fall down. The world's going to be collapsing. You're going to be letting people know, okay, it's time to exit the building. Let's everybody go home and do what we need to do. Let's be safe. But the thing is that the more that they engage in information that's readily available to them, the more it's a distraction from taking away from what it is that you need to do. Now, when we've had like things like the riots, for instance, yes, that's important stuff to put up on the monitors at work so that people can stay informed. Same thing happened during 9/11. We had all that coverage up in the moment while it was going on because yes, people need to be informed. Active shooters in your area, same thing, right? Those are key things. Tornadoes, hurricanes, all that good stuff. Those are key things. But what you're addressing is in the moment crisis. You're not putting fertilizer on the narrative.
I think that's an important distinction. All of those things you mentioned are things that affect your employees right now,
Yes.
this instance,
Yeah.
and that they need to know before they walk out the door.
Yes.
If there are riots going on in your town, and you keep that secret from your employees, and they walk out and get in their cars and drive right into the center of it, that's
Bad.
that's bad. Um, and so those are things that are a safety issue right now. What's not critical is to have a company debate over the upcoming presidential election. And that's 5 months from now. And even one day from now, it's not something that your business needs to be doing within work hours. Employees are absolutely free to vote for whoever they want, campaign for whoever they want, put a bumper sticker on their car for their favorite candidate. I'm happy with all of those things. But once we start bringing it into the office, um, you're going to see animosity building between groups.
Yeah.
Because as you said earlier, there are very few companies out there where everyone has the same political beliefs that you do.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you may think everybody does, but someone may just be keeping their mouth shut.
Yep. I think another thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm going to step on you.
I was going to say, and this is where my political science training comes in. I have a few things I learned in political science school. One of them is this thing called the spiral of silence. And when people feel like they're in the minority, they'll just keep their mouth shut, and then they'll just go ahead and do what they want on the side. And when it comes to political things, that means that they vote differently than you might think that they will. But the same thing can happen with company policies and procedures and all of that, that people then vote with their feet and they quit. And
Yeah.
you never know why. You never know why. And it's because they've been treated poorly and they were pressured into something or whatever, and they kept their mouths shut, and then they got a new job and they left.
And they will not tell you in an exit interview.
No, they won't. And you know what else? I will tell them not to tell you in an exit interview, because unless you're talking about the CEO in a Fortune 500 company, anything you say in an exit interview can get back to the manager, and you need that reference.
Yep.
You need that reference. And
Yep.
so to say, I left this job because my manager never listened to me, or because he was always harping on this politician or whatever, you're not going to say that, because you want 5 years from now, when you're looking for another job, your old manager to give you a positive reference.
Yep.
And so, as much as I, the data person, love honesty in an exit interview, as an HR person, I'm like, shh, just be positive. This was the best job you ever had, and this new job just fell into your lap, and aren't you so torn about it that dang it, you have to take it? And I wish that wasn't true, but there's no way to provide meaningful feedback to managers without identifying who said it, just because most managers don't have enough employees that quit within a year to keep it anonymous.
Right. Exactly. So there's some other things that you guys can do too that will help with all the information, and I wouldn't say controlling information, but really continuing to set those expectations. So first and foremost is email forwarding, things like memes and jokes and stuff like that. First off, you don't want that stuff on your server. You really don't, especially if it's inappropriate, because let's say, for example, you got this one person who's got all these really fantastic jokes, and you've got one individual that gets them on a regular basis, and all of a sudden there's that one that is insensitive, and or that person perceives it or takes it as being insensitive. Okay, so what happens if there's a conflict as a result of that, or a little bit later down the road, because the recipient now has completely lost trust, and then they build up animosity and they don't talk their things out and feelings or what have you and whatnot. And then the receiver says, that's it, I'm done. This is a hostile work environment. I'm getting to the point where I don't like this stuff because of that one moment to where they lost trust. Well, guess what? Now you've got evidence on your server.
Absolutely.
That you didn't even know. Yeah.
So a lot of those forward things too, people don't look at them carefully before they hit forward. No. And so they may not even mean to have said something dumb or insensitive. They just, haha, I always get these funny jokes from Jane, so now I'm going to forward them out to my team.
Yes.
And now what? Because you are responsible for what you said and what you sent out, and now we've got to deal with it. I really like the work is separate from outside.
Yep, absolutely.
And I really also don't like managers scouring people's social media to find out what they're thinking and what they're saying, and
don't go there. Yeah. But the thing is that with the emails, so like with these memes and things, what happens is that people from home, they forward them to their work emails. So here's the thing. If you want to figure out, okay, so how do we rein this in? Just have your IT department run, emails, common emails like Yahoo's and that are inbound to employee emails. I mean, it'll take a little bit of a project, but you can start to identify who's sending what. And because this is work and these are your systems that you own as a company, there is no expectation of privacy. So can you monitor? Yeah. Can you address it? Yeah, absolutely you can. And you should. I think it's important.
And I think it's also important to let people know that you're doing that.
Yes.
Because people do feel this false sense of security, like this is my email account. That I can tell you, as somebody who's managed people when they quit and they have important stuff for their email, I just took over their email account. And if they had love letters to their spouse, those were in there too. Now, I didn't care. I didn't want to look at them, but they're there, right? And if you're in a situation where you ever get subpoenaed, all that stuff is coming out, man. There is nothing. You cannot say you can't look at my whole email box, or that was just a joke. When I said, oh, we should fire all the fat people, ha ha ha, and then be like, no, that was just a joke, and obviously we didn't fire all the fat people. We just happened to fire Jane, who's fat, which in most states is legal. In Washington state, that's illegal. Weight discrimination is illegal.
Oh, and speaking of emails, make sure that you guys have guidance and direction on what is acceptable and what is company approved on email signatures, because remember, politics and religion are the two top hotspots, and now we've got discrimination. If somebody is putting underneath their signature and their name Black Lives Matter, or if they're putting under God under one nation, under God under one nation, or whatever, right? Or God bless and have a wonderful day, or vote Trump 2021, whatever, right? 2020. Don't allow people to do that. That's where you have to draw the line, because if they're also sending emails internally and externally, I don't know what that screeching sound is, but it's driving me crazy. So if they send something externally, they're going to be sending it to vendors. They're going to be sending it to people that do business with the organization, and they're going to very quickly you're going to offend somebody on the outside. In addition to that, you may wind up losing business as a result of that.
I think that's absolutely true, and it's something that has always bothered me. Your email signature should be your name, your title, contact information, and that's it. Maybe a legal disclaimer, and I also hate the don't print this, save the environment, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, who prints emails? Anyway, but one of those things, I get a ton of email from people all over, all these different businesses, tons of them, so much email. And I myself am a super religious person. I go to church every Sunday. I teach religion classes. I love Jesus. There you go. But I don't want your work email to say Jesus loves you in it. It's
Right.
not the place. Do I want
Right.
you to feel free to let your coworkers know that you go to church on Sunday? Absolutely, because that's a normal part of life. What did you do this weekend? I went to church. Oh, I went bowling. Okay, that's great. But when you send that out to, as you said, to vendors, to clients, to internal things, and you say Jesus loves you, I'm willing to say, absolutely, Jesus does love you. I believe that with my whole heart. I'm not putting it in my email signature. And it shouldn't be in anybody in your company's email signature either.
Yeah.
Unless you're, a church, then you can put that
right.
there.
Right. So the whole goal of all of these tips and tricks that we're sharing with you guys is how to keep your environment more neutral. And I'm not talking about like neutral as in vanilla and it doesn't have character or, it's encroaching on values or anything like that. But what I'm referring to is how do you avoid these little moments that are going to happen, these little, emotional bombs that are going to take place. Another thing that you guys have to look out for is instant messaging. Now, a lot of people think, and I've done a whole episode on this. Matter of fact, I'm going to be starting to speak on this a little bit more. And you guys can go ahead and check out this podcast episode over on my show on the Best Practices in Human Resources podcast. And I talk about all of this. I talk about how Gawker Media lost a $140 million lawsuit, wound up closing down because of instant messaging and stuff that was found on a server. It wasn't the sole reason for it, but it was definitely part and parcel to it. It was a huge contributing factor to their loss. If you look at the service agreements for free, I mean, I like Slack. Slack is a fun thing to use and it's very productive, but a lot of companies are using the free version of it. And the free version doesn't give an employer the opportunity to pull any data out if they have an employee-related issue. That's a big issue. That's a big problem right there. So we got to be mindful of those things because those things either are on your server or on somebody else's server. And if you don't have policy or procedure or even, and I think you really need to put training in place on what is acceptable on all of these things that we're talking about, what it's not. Because if you're not monitoring it, it will get away from you and it will bite you in the butt.
It really will. And you can really start to feel like this conversation is private, right?
Yes.
We're just IMing each other. It's all private. I know you, you know me, you know I'm joking, I know you're joking, blah, blah, blah. And that may be true, but it's discoverable in a lawsuit.
Totally.
And so
Totally.
when you and I joke back and forth, about let's fire all the fat people, if we're in Washington State where that's illegal, and a fat person does get fired, even though that was nothing to do with the decision, that had nothing to do with the decision, that's going to come back and bite you in the butt. Even though me texting that I am a fat person, I could say, oh, I was joking about me. But it's not something that you want on your servers.
No.
You don't want that. And as long as we're talking about instant messaging, let's talk about Zoom. Zoom came out and said your free version is not encrypted.
Nope.
And we all know about Zoom bombing, which started at the beginning of this lockdown, where everybody was suddenly using Zoom and random people would show up with a lack of proper business dress attire on your Zoom meeting. um, but it's not just that; it's that somebody could hack your meeting, and I'm not like thinking like the Russians are hacking our meeting. They don't care about our meeting, but it's also things that can be recorded easily without you knowing. Um, I could be recording this right now, and Brenda would never know, except for the fact that we're live streaming it.
And I know how technologically advanced you really are.
Oh, that would hurt if it wasn't true.
Why are you?
You're no longer my friend.
Oh my gosh. So these are the things. Yeah. So these are the things that, we're suggesting. The last thing that we want to talk about before we start closing up, and we got about 10 minutes left, is how are you communicating with your employees about these things? And, there's a magic 3 combination that's out there. If you set a policy, you train to it, and you coach to it, or you correct it when it happens, then your organization is doing as much as it can to demonstrate. Doesn't mean that you may not have a complaint filed against you. Doesn't mean that you may not have to go to court. But what it shows is that you are demonstrating that everything that took place is individual will, which will take the heat off of you if you're up against some sort of legal battle, and demonstrate, okay, this really is, because certain cases, it really is the employee side. Because certain cases are either the burden of evidence is on the employer to prove that they did not do X, or it is the burden of evidence is on the employee to demonstrate that the employer did X. So if you aren't adhering to those 3 things, I swear that sounds like an alien ready to come in. I have no idea what that screeching sound is. It's driving me nuts. It reminds me of an episode on Star Trek Voyager, and it's driving me crazy. I have to figure that one out. Sorry, guys. But
it's July's apocalyptic thing coming soon.
Great. One more thing to add to the bucket. So those 3 things is what you're working to set yourself up successfully for, in order to, if you guys have to address something. Because if you can demonstrate that you've done everything you can, you've worked with the employee, you've worked to, hold them accountable for their behavior. And again, there's that behavior again. We're not talking about attitude. You can't correct attitude. And if you think you can, try correcting a 4-year-old's attitude when they're having a hissy. Good luck with that. But it's behavior. And ultimately the goal is just to turn undesired behavior into desired behavior. That's the whole thing keep them focused, but it's all about it's all about nurturing the right kinds of behavior in order to keep people focused, to keep the drama down, to make sure that your external people and those eyes that are looking in on your company, they're not seeing you in a way that you don't want to be portrayed. That's what this is all about. But it helps people stay focused, because work is, in fact, a really great distraction from, like what Suzanne said yesterday, which you didn't hear, and that is when the world feels like it just keeps pushing in on you, because it's hard.
It's really hard. And right now, there's hardly anybody on the planet that isn't feeling that it's hard right now.
Yeah.
And we've got all of these world things. We haven't taken away any of the family problems. We've increased the financial problems, health problems. All of those things didn't go away. We just added all this stuff on top of it. And so to make work a place where people can come and just work.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice.
It's
really nice.
It is
work.
Yeah. And when they're able to do something that makes them feel fulfilled, it takes away from all of the fear. It takes away from all of the discomfort. It makes people have confidence in you and your organization. God, you know how nice that would be to wake up every day and know, like that guttural feeling that your employees are confident that you have the ability to take them to the next level, that their job is going to be here the next sunrise.
Right.
And that's huge.
That's huge. That is really, really really huge. And, I bet that the CEO of CrossFit is kicking himself right now. I bet he's kicking himself. And he's like, I, I'm, I'm sure he was trying to be funny. I'm sure he was. And it fell flat.
Yep.
And now look at that.
You can never ever unring a bell. You can't do it.
You cannot do it, and deleting a tweet doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter. I myself have shared many a tweet that have been deleted. So yeah, screenshot, baby.
Yeah.
They are real.
It's lightning fast. So if you think that that's going to, not be the sound that you want to put out in the world, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I do think just the important thing is work needs to be a place where people can work.
Yes.
And that seems such like a stupid statement. This is where you can work.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to go to work and trust that my coworkers have my back at work. It doesn't matter what our political views are, what our religious views are, whatever. I need to know that if I ask Brenda for the quarterly affirmative action report, she'll get it to me. That's it. That's what I need to know.
After I contract a company to do it for you, yeah, I will absolutely go ahead and get it to you. I am not touching that thing with a 10-foot pole. That is a show for another day.
That's why I assigned it to you. Do you think I want to do that? I have done so many of those reports in my day.
Done. All right. So we've got 3.5 minutes left. I do, before we start wrapping this up, I do want to put out a huge congratulations to a very good friend of mine. Yes, it is a shameless plug, and I love him to death. His name is Mike Day. He is a U.S. Navy SEAL. He was shot 27 times, blown up by a grenade, walked to the helicopter, survived, and is the recipient of the Navy Cross. He has his new book that is launching this week, and everybody would love to see it get to the New York Times bestselling list. It's called Perfectly Wounded, and you can go to perfectlywounded.com. My copy is arriving on my doorstep. Like I'm literally watching the tracking because I just can't wait till I get it. I've sat through quite a bit listening to him, through the interviews and through the writing process. And I'm promising, if you want a good read, get this. And Mike's been on my podcast show as well. So get it. It's called Perfectly Wounded, and you can find it at perfectlywounded.com. He's super awesome guy. And just love
That's so exciting.
It is very exciting, but it is an incredible story. And I just can't wait to dig in and read it. So here's where you guys can find us. So you can find me over at LinkedIn. You can find Suzanne over in LinkedIn. You can find Suzanne over on Twitter as well. She is also over at The Real HR Lady. You can find me, I'm about ready to botch this up, over on Instagram. You can find me over on Facebook. And again, you can find me up in LinkedIn. And our web addresses. So if you want to connect with us, go ahead. You can find me over at bestpractices.org. You can find Suzanne over at theevilhrlady.org. And since we got a little bit of time left, let's do this. Let's share with everybody our groups.
All right. So we each have Facebook groups that you can join. Mine is Evil HR Lady, and we're a bunch of HR people and people that care about business. And you can post your questions, and people will answer them, and you can help other people, and you can also share funny memes that are work related.
You guys have some really great conversations over there. I've joined in on it. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we do. It's a really great group. The people on there are amazing. And I want to add, there are people of all races, religions, political beliefs, whatever. We keep it respectful.
Yep, absolutely. And I have a group where I work with women and men in HR, working them to help them figure out the what and the how in HR and how to get things done. And just recently launched a brand new HR planner called the Best HR Planner in the World. It's on a soft release right now. So if you're interested, you can find it at the bestpractices.org website. But that is who I jump over, and you can find us over at Next Gen Women in HR over on Facebook group. And this is pretty awesome. So we are here every Tuesday, come hell or high water, as last weekend was a huge technological hoopla. But that's okay. We got through it today. So you feel free to join us at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you miss us, that's okay. You can always catch us up on the replay. So we are pretty stoked to be here every week and enjoy doing this with you.
Absolutely. So we will see you next week.
Absolutely, guys. Have a good one and be safe out there.
Safe.